How are you all doing? My name is Vivian O'Callaghan. Welcome to my video. Today I'm looking at the overall cryptocurrency market, and I suppose within that space, is there going to be a time when Bitcoin can hit $100,000? Well, there are many commentators out there that believe that that's going to have further down to go. We've been in a bear market now for approximately 10 months, and of course the price today is in around $6,500. There are some commentators out there that believe it is further to go, maybe as low as $5,000. While this is plausible and possible, I don't think it's going to happen. Bearing in mind the cost of mining a Bitcoin at the moment is in around $6,000, I think it's unlikely that we'll go as low as 5,000. But there are many who believe that the value of Bitcoin is going to increase and potentially increase rapidly when that does happen. Some are predicting a breakout literally in the next few days. And certainly on the run into the end of the year. And many believe over the next few years that the likes of this figure is very much possible. We have the likes of John McAfee, who sees Bitcoin being valued at 1 million by 2020. I personally believe that's unlikely in that space of time, and maybe not ever. But certainly there are others who are also quite bullish. You've got Tim Draper, who says he believes it's going to be worth $250,000 by 2022. Bear in mind that's just approximately 3 years' time. That seems like a high figure, on the face of it. But and on the other side of it, when Bitcoin was just worth a couple of $100, he predicted it would be worth $10,000. Said it for years, and in actual fact, within his time frame, it actually went to $20,000. So it's worth listening to people like him that certainly know the space, have made a lot of money from it, and are now making predictions for 250,000. I know Tom Lee, who also is involved with Bitcoin for many years. He's predicting it'll be 25,000 by the end of this year, and believes it'll be 125,000 by 2020. So there's many opinions out there as to where Bitcoin is going to be, and of course, in turn, where Bitcoin goes, the overall crypto market tends to follow. So it's certainly a very interesting space. Where do I think it's going to be? Well, I'd like to look at a few of the trends of the past within cryptocurrency to try and come up with an answer as to where we think it might end up. Do I think it'll hit $100,000 at some point in time? Yes, I do. But what's the time frame likely to be? First and foremost, over the next few months, I certainly think that Bitcoin will probably increase a little bit towards the end of the year. I certainly don't think it's going to be at $25,000. I think it may increase by 8,000 or so. But that's where I would see it by the end of the year. I think the real movement will come at the first quarter of next year. Why do I think that? Well, there's many factors to look at. Let's just look at the history of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency in general first. So Bitcoin and the overall cryptocurrency market in January 16 was just 7 billion, the overall market cap. In January 17 was 18 billion. And of course, in January 18, it had shot through the roof and went to 665 billion, with the overall top of the market and the coin market cap being 830 billion. Of course, we've seen a significant retraction since that. We've been in a bear market ever since then. So in around the 10, coming up to 11 months now. And currently we're in around the 220 billion mark. Where's it going to go to from here? Bearing in mind that to date, it's pretty much been retail investors that have got involved in the crypto market and the Bitcoin space. The fact that it went from 18 billion at the start of 2017 to 665 billion at the end of, the start of 2018 in just 1 year, with just retail buyers in the main. It seems very likely to me that if institutional investors were to get involved, that we could see a very significant climb very quickly should that happen. There are a lot of indicators that are suggesting that exactly that is going to happen. And if you look at some of the news articles that have come out quite lately, just share my screen, you'll see here the likes of Fidelity have launched a new company catering to cryptocurrencies. So who are Fidelity? Fidelity is a company with more than 7.2 trillion in client assets. and they've announced that it's launching Fidelity Digital Assets, which will offer enterprise quality custodial and trade execution services for cryptocurrencies to sophisticated institutional investors such as hedge funds, family offices, and market intermediaries. So it really appears like that they're going to open up this space. Their goal is to make digital native assets such as Bitcoin more accessible to investors. They go on to say, in our conversations with institutions, they tell us that in order to engage with digital assets in a meaningful way, they need a trusted platform provider to enter the space. These institutions require a sophisticated level of service and security equal to the experience they're used to when trading stocks or bonds. Basically, institutional investors are not going to touch the space until they can have access to it through a trusted company that they currently deal with. And of course, Fidelity are a huge company that controls 7.2 trillion in exactly that type of assets. So it's highly likely that this is going to open the door for institutional investors to take part. Also with that, we also have the news that Bakkt are coming to the scene. So who are Bakkt? Bakkt are a company created by ICE, and ICE being Intercontinental Exchange. Who are they? They're the owners of the New York Stock Exchange and many other exchanges and clearinghouses around the world. So again, this is a significant indicator that these companies who are used to being involved in the financial space are now making room for cryptocurrency, and in specifically creating a platform for institutional and large money people out there to be able to bring their money safely into the cryptocurrency world. So it seems to me it's highly likely that we're going to see this institutional money starting to flow in. I think we might see some bit of it coming in before the end of the year, but I don't think too much. I think they'll have to be fully up and running and functional, and bearing in mind, I think Bakkt are talking about launching on December the 12th. I think we'll see some money come in at that stage, but I think the real money will start to come in 2019 in the first quarter. And I think towards the end of the first quarter, I think it's during this quarter that we're going to see us change from what has been a bear market for 10 months. At that stage, it'll be closer to 12 months, turn to a bull market. In history, in the crypto history, it tends to be that however long the bear market runs for, when it turns to a bull market, it tends to be about equally as long. So it's highly likely that when this bull market does come into play, that we could have 12 months of a bull run. How much will that affect the value of the likes of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies remains to be seen. But I think it's highly likely that we'll see some massive gains across a lot of cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin. So where can we go with the value of Bitcoin? If you look at in the history again of cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin, with Bitcoin specifically, every low, every time it increases, it tends to increase quite rapidly over a period of time. In 2013, we went from $70 to $1,200, so massive gains. But we also see that followed with very significant decreases, and we've had decreases of 93%. At that time, we had a decrease of just over 80%, about 82%. And so each time it goes too high and comes back to a low, the next low is higher than the previous low, and each high is higher than the previous high. So it is a stepping ladder up. So it seems very likely that we are currently at a low within Bitcoin now at $6,500. It's been bouncing between sort of 6,000 and 6,300 for the last number of weeks and even months. So many people feel we're at the bottom. If you were to buy Bitcoin today, it is possible, of course, that it can go down a little bit, but I don't think too far. Whereas over time, the upside potential is very significant. And based on the multiples that we've seen in the past from lows to highs, it's highly likely that you could see the current low of $6,500 climbing to somewhere between $100,000 to $120,000. And if we have a bull run that lasts for about 12 months and institutional investors are involved as well, then I think that's very plausible. Will it happen? We'll see. If we look at it from another angle, if you look at the overall market cap, we managed to go to $830 billion on just retail, in the main, retail buyers. If you could imagine that with this bull run, that we could get to somewhere between 2 to 3 trillion dollar valuation on market cap, which I think is absolutely plausible. We got to just under $1 billion on just retail investors. We're a year further down the road now, heading into potentially a really long bull run, and potentially a lot of big hedge fund and institutional investors coming to the market. Then I think it's highly plausible that we could see somewhere between 2 and 3 trillion valuation on the marketplace by the end of 2019. Should that be the case, Bitcoin has traditionally held over the last 12 months, it has more or less held about a 50% dominance on the market. So whatever the overall crypto market is worth, Bitcoin tends to be in around half that value. What we did notice is when it really took off at the end of 2017 and just the start of 2018, the dominance of Bitcoin went down as low as about 33%. But if we were to assume a $2 to $3 trillion market at the end of 2019, what percentage would you expect Bitcoin to be of that? Well, if it held its 50% dominance, which is currently in around 52% at the moment, and it hit 2 to 3 trillion, well, then you'd expect that Bitcoin would have, if it was about 50% of that, and Bitcoin by 2018 having about 18 million coins, well, then you'd have a valuation running between 55,000 and 83,000. If the Bitcoin dominance was to reduce down to about the 33% mark, which we've seen before, you'd be looking at a valuation of about 36,000 to 55,000. So there's many aspects here and many reasons why you would look that Bitcoin is highly likely to increase in value over time. Will it hold its dominance? Will the market get to 2 to 3 trillion by the end of 2019? Of course, these are questions we can't answer for sure, but I certainly would feel, it's my belief, that that is where the overall crypto market is going. And I certainly think that Bitcoin will have a significant percentage of that. I don't think it will hold its 50% dominance. But even at a 33% dominance, it's still going to have very, very significant value. So for me, I think the outlook for the price of Bitcoin is very, very strong. Will it hit 100,000 by the end of 2019? Probably unlikely, but I think it'll certainly be stretching towards it. But does that mean then that we should all run out and buy some Bitcoin? Well, of course, these returns will be absolutely huge. Should you go and buy Bitcoin now at 6,500 and it gets to 50,000, 80,000, 100,000, well, then of course your returns are going to be hugely significant. But is it worth looking at the other cryptocurrencies that are out there? And I certainly think it is. But before I go any further, I'd just like to stress here, I have no financial experience and I'm not certainly giving any financial advice here. I'm looking at the market, seeing what's happened in the past, applying a little bit of mathematics and some logic, and seeing where I think the market will go. But to answer the question, should we all just go run out now and buy whatever we can of Bitcoin? And like I said, the returns could be very significant should these things happen. Or should we look at some other cryptocurrencies? Well, and actually, before I go into that, I just wanted to show here, some people might be thinking, well, why aren't institutional investors coming into the play already? If we see that these things are going to happen into the future, why aren't they already doing it? Why is the price of Bitcoin not fluctuating over the last month or so? Well, I think we can see a bit of a picture of maybe why here. Here's 5 Bitcoin addresses that anyone can look up and check and see how much Bitcoin they hold. You can do that with any Bitcoin address. These are 5 very recently created Bitcoin wallets, and here are the dates in which Bitcoin was first placed into these Bitcoin wallets. So as you can see, very recently, as the earliest being just very late September, the rest in October. But yet, within these wallets that have just received their first Bitcoin on these dates, look at the level of Bitcoin that has actually been accumulated in these wallets. On the lesser end, 11,250 Bitcoin, right up to in excess of 55,000 Bitcoin. To put that into money terms, you can see it ranges from 72 million up to 355 million. That's very significant investment in Bitcoin by just 5 individual wallets. It comes to, just shy of $1 billion has been put into Bitcoin. Why haven't we seen this on the exchanges? Why haven't we suddenly seen the Bitcoin price going up on the back of this amount of money going into Bitcoin? Because all these trades have been done over the counter. OTC, they call it, over the trades. And what is that? Well, it's where the actual trades don't happen on the exchanges. They happen on over-the-counter facilities. And how does that happen, or why does that work? So if you can imagine being a big, big buyer of Bitcoin, if you want to go and invest, in the case of one person here, 355 million into Bitcoin, well, as you go into an exchange and you start buying at that level, of course, the price of the coin is highly likely to be going up. So you're going to be paying more and more and more as you buy more Bitcoin. This is obviously not what the buyer wants. On the other side of the equation, you have the Bitcoin miners who tend to sell over the counter in big volumes to the likes of these big buyers. They have many Bitcoin to sell. Do they want to go onto the exchanges and actually sell Bitcoin? And in turn, as they do lots of sells, the price of Bitcoin go down. Of course, the miners don't want that. So what they do is they reach a happy medium. One sells to the other. The price doesn't fluctuate. They have an exact price for the transaction that they are making. And they're happy both sides. On one side, the miners are selling at a set price, and the buyers on the other side are buying at a set price, which is what both of them want. So that's a big reason, I believe, why we haven't seen the movement in Bitcoin on the exchanges yet. But there's no doubt in my mind the institutional investors are already starting to put their money in. Over time, that will certainly play its hand on the exchanges. But I think the real movement will happen in early 2019. So now I want to just share a chart that a friend of mine, Tony, did, which I think is very telling. And the question I asked a while ago was, should we all just run out and buy some Bitcoin? And while I'm sure you will do quite well from buying from Bitcoin, it's definitely worth looking at other cryptocurrencies too. And I think this chart really shows that. Number one, you can see the prices of all the various these are the top 10 at the time, which was the 1st of January 2017. These were the top 10, and they're the prices that they were at that time. And so, as Tony has put in here, you could have, with $10,000, so 1,000 into each, by the end of that year, so within 12 months, your 10,000 would be worth just shy of 1,981,000. What an amazing returns that would have been. But if you look at Bitcoin, and here's the real tell, you would see you would have got very significant returns. You'd be extremely happy with what you've got back. However, of the top 10, it's the one that gave the least return. So like I said, you'd have been very happy with your return, but you could have made significantly more had you spread your bets across other cryptocurrencies. And I think there are plenty other good cryptocurrencies that are worth noting outside of Bitcoin. And that's something I'm going to be doing in a video shortly. I'm going to go through 3 or 4 cryptocurrencies that I think are very much worth watching and looking out for in 2019. Because I think there's a lot to be gained by doing a little bit of research, looking at the cryptocurrencies that are going to give the most utility. Are they spendable? Are they usable? Are they easy to get involved with? And what are they going to actually bring to the market? Bitcoin's okay. Bitcoin is the original. Many people will go into Bitcoin first. And in actual fact, I think when, like individuals, I think the institutions will first run to Bitcoin. But as they start to look and see and understand the other cryptocurrencies that are out there and the other opportunities, I think Bitcoin will pull back a little bit at that stage. Its dominance will reduce, but I think the overall crypto market will increase as institutional investors start placing money in other cryptocurrencies where they see even better returns. So I think we're going to see, when it takes off, I think we'll see a very quick and high spike in Bitcoin. I think that will last for quite a while and continue as retail also follows in behind. But then I think we'll start seeing both retail and institutional money start to move across into other cryptocurrencies, just like it did before in the last spike. So I suppose the bottom line is, to answer the question that I started with, is can Bitcoin reach $100,000? I think absolutely yes. It's just a question of time. Will it happen in 2019? I personally don't think so, but I certainly see it going into the 30, 40, 50,000 mark and beyond. And I think over the longer period of time, of course, there'll be spikes and troughs, but I think over time it'll hit 100,000 and beyond. But like I said, there's definitely plenty other options out there as well, plenty other cryptocurrencies that I think are worth noting, but it really just means doing the correct research and seeing which ones are really going to come to the fore. There's plenty of cryptocurrencies out there that I think are going to go nowhere and fall away. Just like in the tech boom times, there was some came shining through and the majority fell aside. I think that will happen with cryptocurrencies too. And it really is about doing research and picking the right ones. With that, I'm going to help you as we go along. I have plenty cryptocurrencies that I think are going to do extremely well in 2019, and I think will actually outperform Bitcoin, though I think Bitcoin will do very well. But with that, guys, I look forward to talking to you all very shortly. Talk to you soon. Hope you enjoyed that. If you do, please, click on a like and ideally subscribe and make sure to click on that bell. Each time I do a video, you'll see it. There's many more to come. Thanks for your time.